Shingling. Tinkling. I left my bells at home. I left my bells at home this morning as I was leaving to get here. Usually, I start these shows with my chimes, my Tibetan chimes, and I knew I left something. Only God's perfect. Only God's perfect. Welcome to Psychic Frank's Mystery School. I'm Psychic Frank, and it's a live call-in show. You can interrupt me. It wouldn't be interrupting me if you wanted to call in. I have my tarot cards here. I have something interesting about this card, the Five of Cups. I've been doing readings for a long time now, and I've looked at this card, and for some reason, I never really realized this is not a planet. This isn't like the moon. This thing back here is a bridge. It's so obvious. I guess I knew that, but for some reason, I blocked it out for a while. I haven't been doing as many readings over the last few years as I used to. Uh, I've been working on inner things, doing very fewer readings, but that's another story. And yeah, so this bridge is all about concentration and commitment. Once you realize I'm going to move my mind to a different place, and then you got to commit to that. And that's what that bridge is, to take you through the dark night of the soul. These are the cups, which are emotions, and this is the bridge here. And if you notice, that water just flows really nicely under the bridge. So there's a real flow to just, once you ask for help, it comes, it comes. And this is interesting too. I'm going to shuffle the cards, don't worry. And this is the Eight of Swords. I thought was interesting, Swords of Mind. And this one is all about mystification. It's 1 second here. We'll get back to that. Uh, I just had it. I just had it right here. Well, we'll get back to this. Yeah, it's all about the belief that you're powerless. Keep mystification keeps. Here it is. Keeps the people down, not by force, but by training them to believe in their own helplessness. A diagram of the oppressed condition. Recognition of ignorance is the first step towards true knowledge, and it's the hardest for many. For everyone, I guess. Yeah, for anyone. So let me shuffle the cards now. And yeah, we all have to take really good care of ourselves now. There's a whole lot of planets in Earth. So the Earth it's a very mystical time to be on the planet Earth and in touch with the Earth's wisdom. Yeah, we got like this Pisces full moon coming up. But right this magic moment, we're doing this show today on the 5th, the very first 5th, the first Thursday. I'm here the first Thursday and the third. First and third Thursday of every month. So I'm here on the 5th. I'll be here on the 19th, God willing. And for those of you who are tuned in for the first time, because I realize more and more people are I meet, and then they watch my show, and then they subscribe, and they become fans, I guess how else do you put it, and they thank me. And so, yeah, so those of you who are just tuning in, I haven't done this for a few years, but I'm Psychic Frank, and I'm a psychic, and like many psychics, we have challenges with time frames. We get these clear pictures. They could be like years ahead or above, on either side. And I learned like a long time ago when I studied with this in this mystery school by this husband and wife team. To use both astrology and become adapted astrology and numerology, and that really gets like pinpoints my was very accuracy when events are not that astrology should be event oriented, but you want to know what's going on, right? You go on a trip, you just don't want to wing it. Well, I guess some people do, but if you want to get anywhere, you want to look at the lay of the land, and see, well, okay, this will be the harder way, which is the way I've chose years ago. I remember way back 70s, the early 70s, I looked at this thing is called astrocartography. And if I had stayed on the East Coast, it would have been like a charmed life, but I would have died of excesses of ennui. No, I chose where Pluto went right through San Francisco, and I said that's where I'm going, and public transportation was a big thing. So okay, I want to start off with a poem. It's linked. There's a thread here. Follow me. Laughing Heart, Charles Bukowski, Bukouski. He left us in 94. And there's a YouTube video of him actually reciting this. And he's smoking a cigarette and drinking a can of beer, a glass of beer. And his voice is real gravelly. And I just fell in love with him. You know, I just found him a few weeks ago. I was going through, I believe there's Computer Angels. Dr. Larry Dossey talks about that in his book, One Mind. I love Dr. Larry Dossey. I hope one day to meet him. That's on my list of people that I admire that I would love to meet him, and as I hear his wife is equally fascinating, but he especially is a genius. I believe he's one of the doctors like in the stagecoach way ahead, along with Doctor. There's so many of them. So Charles Bukowski, Bukouski, the Laughing Heart. He says, your life is your life. Don't let it be clubbed into dank submission. Be on the watch. There are ways out. There is a light somewhere. It may not be much of a light, but it beats the darkness. Be on the watch. The gods will offer you chances. Know them. Take them. You can't beat death, but you can beat death in life sometimes. And the more often you learn to do it, the more light there will be. Your life is your life. Know it while you have it. You are marvelous. The gods wait to delight in you. Oh my God, that just is so beautiful. So if you want to hear this again, just go on YouTube and type in Charles Bukowski, Your Laughing Heart. There's several other poems which are equal, but this one just, I recited it by heart, but I wanted to read it today. I sit in front of the sink doing the dishes, and I say this to myself: don't let your life is your life. Don't let it be clubbed into dank submission. Be on the watch. There are ways out, That goes right along to what Pima said about Pima Chodron. My friend Pima talked about when someone shoots an arrow into your heart, instead of, quote unquote, getting back, deal with it. You have an arrow in your heart. Now, that sounds kind of simplistic, but I'm going through these planetary things. I've got 2 more months until Halloween. Boy, I'll make it to Halloween. At Halloween, all these planetary things that have been going on for the last year, level off, especially the Saturn, Neptune. They said in all the literature I've done and all the research, it started around January. Saturn transits, transiting, squaring, which are never fun things, but windows of a total that you want. You don't want your life, you want to have challenges. And they all, to Neptune, and they say spirits tend to sag. Man, mine went flatline. Mine needed life support. That, along with Uranus, doing this number on my north node now, it's just, I have no conscious control over what's going on. So last month I was minding my own business, and I opened my emails, and there was one sentence that literally made me sick to my stomach. It was like I don't like to judge things good or bad, but it was upsetting, very upsetting news. It's one sentence that said I could laugh now, but I felt like this 30 serial thing they had on movies. It was called Tailspin Tommy. I went into a total tailspin psychic prank, and I just like. I couldn't believe it, and then it got worse. It just kept on getting worse until I found myself in a uh, I just isolated. I just took to my bed for a few days, and I finally got out on Sunday, like last Sunday, 2 Sundays ago, and went down to the mailbox and more bad, not bad news, but just what you think. Because and I started laughing, and I said, "Boy, when it rains, it pours." Well, the very next day, they're saying there's really truth in the matter of sleep on it. Just take a deep breath and sleep on it, and while you're in the dream state, allow your guides that brought you to planet Earth. Now's the time to get with these your earthly mission, like Plato said. To realize one's destiny is a person's only obligation. Well, anyway, I'm in my early 70s now. I'm approaching 71 real soon. And I feel like I'm 71 going on 11. I love it. I love my life. And, uh, and I love my life with my parrot. And more every time I see people, people ask about Gavi, and everybody feels they know me. Yeah, people are, as I said, who are just watching this show. Yeah, what happened in '82, September 19th, '82? I was really sick and close to death, and the last thing I expected was to just get sucked out of my body, and I had this total amazing out of body experience, and I came back a different person. I left, it was pitch dark, and then I came back, it was bright lights, and I went into a 30-day rehab here in San Francisco at St. Mary's Hospital, and got in touch with the Carmelite nuns, and they're a powerful order for hopeless people. I believe because they're Carmelite, they have a close connection to God. And I'm talking about the God that Thomas Paine and Carrie Walters talks about. We're going to get to that. So I said it was like someone had shot an arrow in my heart. And a lot of times I don't think it happens consciously. I think it's the subconscious. A lot of I won't for a second think people intentionally mean to shoot arrows into other people's heart. It just happens. And if it wasn't them, it would have been somebody else. I can't eat the menu instead of the meal. But as this whole thing triggered, and back in my 70s when I was running around Hawaii, I could go on week fasts. You know, I lived in a commune, and even when I was living in San Francisco before I went to Hawaii for around 4 years, in the early 70s, in my early 20s. Um, there was always some fast going around, and back in the 60s, early 70s, there was a lot of fasting going on. But at 72, 70, like I'm in my 71st year, you can't do that. You can't go on fast. And I guess I just forgot to eat for a few days, and I was at the pet store on 24th Street 2 Mondays ago, and laughing with the women that own that. I love them. They're sweet ladies. It's over here on 24th and Castro in San Francisco, and they have all these birds there, and I love the women that run that place. If you have a bird, or if you just love birds, they let people go in. Kids go in and can pet the birds, or older people. The birds love it. The older people love it. The kids love it. They always have a few kids there. It's right on 24th, and it's my favorite place. So I was on top of the world, as on top of the world as I could have been then with all that's going on. I got on the 24 bus, and then all of a sudden, it was like the universe wanted me flat on my back and as soon as I went on crossed Hay, I wasn't going to make it to Hayes Street, and the bus started going, and I know I've been overdosed from drugs in the '60s, and I never had to fight to stay conscious. But I was slipping somewhere. I realize now from malnutrition, I wasn't eating, and a few days had gone by, and it was hot. It was a hot, hot day. So what happened was, I managed to stay on the bus to make it to Hayes Street, but I realized I'm not going to get on my connection, but I had to get horizontal. Long story short, I lugged this 25 pounds of parrot food over to the shade, laid it on the sidewalk, and just lay down on it and started. And I was an orderly in New York City way back in the '60s. They teach you in orderly school how to be an orderly. No matter if they have a knife or a bullet wound in them, if they bleed, whatever it is, tell them to breathe through your nose. Breathe through your nose, if they have a nose, because it's the emergency room in New York City in the early '70s, late '60s. And I used to work the night shift too, so because that was when you got more money. Uh, I was an unemployed actor. It was a good time in my life. It got me out of Vietnam. That's the lottery. I was ready to go any moment, but it turns out the 4 years went by and I ended up not going. So what happened was I lost. So anyway, I lost my old train of thought there. So yeah, my whole. So I got horizontal, and people were walking by saying, "Do you, oh yeah, breathe through your nose." So I started breathing through my nose. Just breathe. I kept on telling myself, "Okay, this is not a stroke because I'm not fearful." Okay, and then the universe, I can't explain it, but I've talked to people who are on the other side, and the last thing they said to me was, "Frank, I almost died. I had to fight to stay here," and all those people's last words came to me because I've been a healer now through the AIDS crisis in the '80s and doing hands-on all kinds. I've seen many souls pass on a lot happier for having known me at that time. And helping them. That's another story. We should do. Yeah, my mystery school. I want more people to get involved in all this. Too many people are exiting and not enjoying and there should be people. It should be more. They shouldn't take trees out. They shouldn't take trees out. The way you love these trees in the city, and for decades they're your friends. And they're there for you, and then one minute they're gone. You look out the window and they're just gone. There should be a ceremony, We're gonna, and have somebody come out and say a prayer about how much we love you, trees, and everything. So anyway, 4 or 5 buses, a half an hour went by, and I had done enough breaths, and I can't explain it, but I woke up. I mean, I came out feeling a whole lot better than when I went down, but I still was pretty weak. And I went home and just, went to sleep, and then I got up and ate, but I realized I had to make some amazing changes in my life, and that's when I sent some emails that were. And what happens is I want to explain that when you get shot with an arrow in your heart, it's a painful, and I know that you've all been there. It's painful. It's totally painful. Some people never get over it. I know many people who are my age or less, but everybody's younger than me. But so what happens is from training now, decades and decades of training, I yelled a lot. I cursed. I used the F word like it was a fountain. I'm not proud of that. Thank God my bird doesn't repeat what I say, because I usually don't do that. When I first got her 24 years ago, I had a real filthy mouth, and she started repeating things I said, and I said, "Oh no, this can't happen." So she's actually, well, I had a relapse. Thank God she didn't really pick up on it, and I just really, you know. Oh, I did it on emails. That's it. I emailed the F word a lot, and I yelled. You can yell in email. You can yell in an email with exclamation points and capital letters, and the F word was, and because I was in pain, I was in total pain. But what I'm saying is, when it all passed, and I was so much wiser for it, and I was laughing. Actually, I was walking around under the bridge, coming back from Rainbow Grocery, my favorite place to chant my ohms, because the loud trucks overhead. I could do them real loud, and nobody thinks I'm crazy, so I was very grateful for it. But I started realizing, even in my darkest moment, did I ever wish anybody any emotional or physical harm? Because as I said, if it wasn't these particular people that triggered this, it would have been somebody else. I needed to go through this particular dark night of the soul, this like this. With, as I said, when it rains it pours scenario, and sometimes we have to go through, you know, uh, uh, rituals of betrayal, rites of passage is a better word for it. I learned about that in the mystery school. And, how do you know if you've gone through? I thought I had gone through one years ago, but how do you know if you've gone through it right unless the universe gives you another one? I see that the people who have beat cancer and then called me a year later saying the cancer's back. And like Louise Hay said, when that exact thing happened to her, how do you know if you've dealt with it unless it's and because yeah, she had written all these books on how she healed cancer, and then the cancer came back. So she was devastated, but she beat it the second time. Uh, so that's what I went through this, what happened was when I first moved into the apartment I'm in now, my psychic who lives in Amsterdam. Uh, in the farmhouse outside of Amsterdam was his, or somewhere around there. I don't think he's still married. Anyway, his daughter is as old as my parent, so they're both in their 20s. Anyway, Joseph was in town. He owns businesses in Petaluma, and I see him every year in November, and he was in town, and I had just moved into this apartment, like and I was having a really bad time with the woman downstairs who was managing the building. She's dead now. But she had her door open, and she was a heavy, heavy cigarette smoker. And anybody who knows, once you quit smoking, you get really, if you're a non-smoker, you don't. And I had to keep on going up the back stairs to avoid, and I would fight with her. And then Joseph came right to visit me, right when I was at the end of this, like, really, head to head with this woman who was suicide. At least shut your door. But she was, I don't know, on a power trip. God bless her. She's on the other side now. I don't want no more bad karma with her. And we end up being friends, as friendly as you can be with someone you can't be around because they stink of cigarettes. But that's another story. So I said to Joseph came in, and I was cleaning house then on Nob Hill, so I had had a full day of abuse, and then I came home. And I had this run-in with this woman because you come home and they walk up 3 flights of stairs smelling this thick smoke tobacco, and so Joseph came in and caught me at a peak moment, and I said to him how upset I was, and I said, but you know what I'm doing, Joseph? Here's the whole point of the story. I said, I'm boomeranging all that energy she's sending me right back to her, and Joseph made this face about, oh, what are you doing, Frank? Didn't you learn anything? And he said, no, neutralize it, man. And it was like this eureka moment, this light bulb over my head. And I was like, so that was in 89, 90. Yeah, early 90s. So I've been studying not getting back. When things happen, when arrows end up in your heart and it hurts and it's painful, I scream. That's what I think. That's the only thing I do that resembles what most humans do. When I'm in pain, I scream. I scream loud and yell, and then so that's my Mars and Sag. My Moon in Taurus. That's another story. That's not my moon in Taurus, but definitely I believe my Mars and my Jupiter in Sag. Yeah, I erupt. And then, so once again, so as I said, I took that bridge, the card I just showed you there, the Five of Cups, where the water runs fluidly, but that's I never saw that more pronounced, that bridge, that tonal bridge there. So remember, yeah. So I'm a transformational, psychic. I do, people that are going through, which I believe we're all going through. Transformational stuff now. So definitely my favorite. There's so much astrology on available to you. There's Pam Gregory, and I wrote the name of some other ones. There's a few other ones. There's this young girl in her late 20s, early 30s, I believe, and I wrote down her name because I thought, oh yeah, uh, where is she? Rachel Spring. Yeah, and then of course there's she writes for the Mountain Astrologer a lot. Kathy Rose, her astrology. They come out every week, twice a month. A lot of them. Twice a month, and some are very short, like Kathy Rose, only two. So I'm not. I don't call myself an astrologer, but when I do sessions, I do a chart. I like to know where the planets are, where the past life is. I could see that all in the chart. But I don't call myself an astrologer because these people are astrologers. I know enough to do what I do, and I have enough respect for these people who know, and they're really easy to listen to if you keep an open mind. One guy said to me, "Yeah, I listened to that. Oh, it's way over my head, Frank. You can't, go in with that kind of a crappy attitude and expect to get anything like that. Like just the fact that you're watching me now, you opened your heart chakra. Yeah, Thomas Paine said here in Common Sense, back when this country, one of the forefathers of this country, the very last sentence of this, the very, very last sentence of Thomas Paine's Common Sense says, and here, without anger or resentment, I bid you farewell, sincerely wishing, that as men and Christians ye may always fully and uninterruptedly enjoy every civil and religious right, semicolon, and be, in your turn, the means of securing it to others. But that the example which ye have unwisely set, of mingling religion with politics may be disavowed and reprobated by every inhabitant of America. But that every example which ye have unwisely set of mingling religion with politics may be disavowed and reprobated by every inhabitant of America. See, that's what happened. This is not a Christian. Our whole country was meant where, yeah, Christians can be there, have their Jesus, All these people do is point the way. Oh, that's why giving up God to find God, Carrie Walters. The San Francisco Public Library has this hard to find books. It's called Link Plus, and then they'll scan the whole Bay Area and find these books for you. So I had to find a copy of Carrie Walters. He's a professor at it'll come to me. It's some New England University there. And Kerry Walters, an award-winning author of more than 20 books and 100 articles. He's Gettysburg College, lives in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. Yeah, he's There's some video of him audio on YouTube. It's interesting, I read him and I love him, but he hasn't had an out of body experience that I've had, and so a lot of what he doesn't know, you can only have by having the experience I had. And I can't even talk about it because there's no words about it. But he gets really close because he talks about all religion does is point the way, you know, and it's a fabulous book. So I went to the Opera Plaza Book House. It's a bookstore in San Francisco on Lower Van Ness, and they order books for me because that's the only reason. Because there's hardly any bookstores that will carry the books I want, and I don't use the computer for that stuff. And they tracked this. He showed me on the computer this book went out of print, and there were all these zeros on a whole page of publishing houses that are no longer printing the copies of this, and it was 0000. He said, no, they quit printing this a couple of years ago. He said, but here's a copy for $95, and oh, here's a used copy for $14. I said, yeah, I'll take that one, and that's what I got in my hand now, and it came in really good shape. So it's called Giving Up God, ... to Find God, Breaking Free of Ideology. Carrie Walters. You know, when I left my body, I went to this it was this telepathic conversation. There was no time. It was the weirdest thing. There's no words for it. That I'm even trying is kind of ridiculous. But it wasn't Jesus. What Mary? It was something galactic. It was one mind. But it was like a collective thing. You know, I never felt more of an important, vital part of this big thing that you want to be part of. This is like where it's all happening. From what I gather, we're so far away from where it's actually happening. If God forbid the earth does blow itself up, you know, it's not going to really bother we're not going to even go there because it's not going to happen. But boy, if this ain't the dark night of the soul, people wake up there. So, but anyway, this goes right along to what I said on my last show about about a woman who talked about super insane and the super sane. Well, he talks here about Carrie Walters talks a lot about. Their tendency to think in one-dimensional terms and their ensuing lack of discrimination makes them particularly receptive and susceptible to charismatic religious leaders, just as children are entranced by good storytellers. The thinking of the extraordinary holds that televangelist talks about how the message is especially designed to evaporate the mystery of God, reassuringly reduce complex matters of faith to a handful of one-liners. Yeah, you know, so, no, but what he says here about, like Jerry Falwell, the Bible is the inerrant ... word of the living God. It is absolutely infallible, without error, in all matters pertaining faith and practice, as well as areas as geography, science, history, etc. And that's Jerry Falwell, wherever he's still alive. And then George MacDonald says, sad indeed would be the matter be if the Bible had told us everything God meant us to believe. But herein is the Bible itself greatly wronged. It nowhere lays claim to be regarded as the Word, the way, the truth. The Bible leads us inexhaustible without ever into the revelation and the pointing the way to God. Nearly half a century ago, Alvin Toffler coined the term future shock. That was when I was coming up, to refer to what he saw as an affliction of the modern information age. This is when computers were like, oh my God, we just gotten used to transistor radios. You know, transistor sister, you know, that was like, it was all bad going to sleep at night with your transistor listener. Well, New York radio in the 60s, don't get me started. I loved it. It was beautiful. Transistor radios, man, that was like, We're there, man. We're on the moon. We got transistor radios. Yeah, that started it. Excuse me. Future shock is quote unquote, the shattering stress and deorientation, unquote, induced in us when we're subject to too much change in too short a time, quote unquote. We simply can't keep psychological pace with the avalanche of novel ideas, technologies, facts, and norms constantly hurtling towards us. And our coping techniques range from bewildered shutting down, or is that I don't have her book now, but that psychologist in the 50s wrote about the super sane, yeah, these people now who are just checking out. They're just, it's her work with the insane that made her realize there was, yeah, people who are just not dealing with fitting in. They're just not seeing this is happening for me. Where do I fit in this? They're seeing this as victims. No imagination. People don't heal. Bernie Siegel, another doctor who's very pro alternative healings. Uh, it's old age. It's not new age. This medicine thing's only like 100 years old now, a couple 100 years old. Okay, yeah, our and coping techniques range from a bewildered shutting down to an angry suspicion of anything new. Toffler wrote in the early days of the computer age, future shock was a problem even then. The breathlessly rapid turnover of information made it possible for today's internet has only aggravated it. So there's a people walking around with future shock, and so this Jesus, so their religion, I'm not going to say whatever it is, any organized religion, So he says God's elusiveness is a far cry from assuming that God changes chameleon-like to suit our every passing fancy. He talks about the designer God, the designer God. Henry Thoreau said, "We worship not the graces nor the parquet, but fashion. She spins and weaves and cuts with full authority." Yeah, so if you read in the mystery school back in the 80s, when I realized they were going to study the Bible, I was like, "Oh, I'm out of here." And then thank God I had friends who said, "Oh, stick around, Frank. Norma's got an interesting," and that's when I started really reading it as Kerry Walters in all of his books there about Jacob's ladder and all that, about, when you read it metaphorically, symbolically, literally, he says the second pace, Sunday schoolers are frightened of moving beyond their pre-adolescent understanding of divinity because the God they worship serves the same function for them that Wendy did for Peter Pan. Because God is forever and capable babysitter who serves the responsible adult in their lives. They can excuse themselves from dank thinking and to paraphrase St. Paul, they continue eating Cracker Jacks and candy long after they should have switched over to nourishing adult food. And as a consequence, they stunt their spiritual growth. That pretty much says it all. So I'll be reading this book for quite a long time because I'm going to be here a long time. I'm still young. I'm still a young man, baby. But that goes right along with Thomas Paine. He also says something about society as is produced by our wants and government by our wickedness. The former promotes our happiness positively by uniting our affections, the latter by negatively by restraining our vices. Yeah, this is he was off on that. They never thought of homegrown terrorists, and they never thought of the industrial military complex. They believe, it's a good book to get. Common Sense, Thomas Paine. You can see it at garage sales anywhere. But that last sentence is worth repeating. I tell you, but that the example which ye have unwisely set, of mingling religion with politics may be disavowed and reprobated by every inhabitant of America. If you love America and keep on talking about the Constitution, then you should be humble about your choice and it say, this is not the only road. But then we got every religion says they're the chosen ones, and then they get blown up and they're wondering, well, what did we do? Well, you called everybody else yesterday's chopped chicken liver. It's like to be one of the chosen. Anybody, just look in the mirror and choose yourself. It's going to happen in one of these lifetimes. Let it be now. Like Charles Bukowski said, this is your life. This is no dress rehearsal. The cameras are rolling. The time is time. It's running through the hourglass for us all. And right now, science is saying to Donald Trump, our own tax-paying scientists are saying, we're in danger. Molly, girl, you in danger. Remember that Whoopi Goldberg and Ghost, she says to Demi Moore, Molly, girl, you in danger. Yeah, so... we were making some bit of progress, but I believe that this, lessons don't go away until they taught us what we needed. So we're getting 4 long years of, I think it's sinking in. I think it's coming into everybody now. Like I said, Leonardo da Vinci said, it had long since become to my attention that people of accomplishment rarely sat back and let things happen to them. They went out and happened to things. Yeah, so this madman, he's he's totally mad as a hatter. Courage is knowing what not to fear. A coward is incapable of exhibiting love. It is the prerogative of the brave. And at the end of the day, science cannot solve the ultimate mystery of nature, and that is because in the last analysis, we ourselves are part of nature, and therefore part of the mystery that we are trying to solve. See, for the last couple hundred years since science, and they're not given an inch. I think only scientists running these universities now. I've been friends with a macrocosm of the micro, the macro, or whatever, the small little individuals at Boston University and Southern California universities. And these are all people who secretly will tell me that, but I'm already the wild man here because I'm thinking of, and what they're thinking of is like milk toast. It's like still watered down pablum. No, we've been staring at the shadow on the wall, and then we're realizing, oh my God, this is what's causing it, and we're seeing the whole everything. So we're all having these eureka moments. So if anybody has any Taurus in their chart, early, middle, or late, Uranus hasn't been in Taurus in 85 years, 87, something like that, 84, 87 years. Things are ecliptic. So the main thing to know when you're dealing with the transits of Uranus and Pluto and even Neptune, the outer planets there, they change the whole big picture of things. That's why what's going on now, Pluto is destroying the Saturn structure in Capricorn with the South Node in Capricorn. Then we've got grounding nature, Uranus, and it's 7 more years of Uranus in Taurus. So it's all about tuning into that divine nature of rhythm, that funky nature rhythm. That's all about you, What did I find here? One second now. A lot of people deal with, several people I know are dealing with sciatica, and I hear that's really, really painful. I know any kind of back pain, upper back is emotional stuff. I've seen a lot of men just get rid of the pain right in front of my eyes when I say, wow, how much guilt have you been carrying around? You've been carrying this guilt around for like 30 years? Wow, you're not that guy. And they look at me and they don't know. They let it go, and I could see right in front of me. At first, they're shocked, and it's like, man, but I tell you, you got to forgive yourself. You're carrying around all this guilt. Well, here he says, being hypocritical, fear of money and of the future. Fear, fear is there's something here I wanted to share about fear, and I'll get it. Just oh, it's right under the cards. Oh boy, the time just flew by. Well, as I said, I'm not going to even go about astrology. Yeah, the Pisces full moon now, like I say, with all this Earth stuff. It's all about getting in touch with your destiny. Get in touch with and make decisions about being true to your calling. Your life is your life. Don't let it be clubbed into dank submission. Backstabbers, they'll smile in your face. And I don't think they do it. I'm not going to believe for one magic moment that people intentionally think of. I think it happens subconsciously. I think it's you got to be on total aware of what frequency am I vibrating at. And when you see people like Donald Trump or any of his, like that Stephen Miller, oh my God, have mercy. You don't want to just say neutralize any of that energy now. It stops with me now, and I rebuke you, Donald Trump. I rebuke you. Yeah. Okay, my friend. Here's the yeah. So. Yeah, these it's not over till it's over. Yeah, of course, there's still Congress is still away, and Saturn, Pluto just went direct, and one by one the planets will start going direct over the next few months, and by the beginning of the year, so I think by the beginning of the year they'll have enough subpoenas. I hope it happens way before then. There's all kinds of surprises happening, but let me pick a couple of cards here. For you all. Yeah, he says a simple line of poetry can speak wisdom of a full novel. So that Bukowski. Yeah, he's a cool dude, man. He's, I guess, part of the beat. Earth. Welcome to Earth School. It's like being served the best meal in the worst restaurant. Let us not forget we're at the end of the Piscean age, the most ruthless, heartless, cruel age. Oh, what's going on now? Keep a good thought. I believe in the power of prayer. I just don't pray to a deity. I believe I have kindred spirits. And I do have, being raised around the Catholic Church, I have icons all over my apartment, but they just point the way. I don't worship those icons anymore. The Buddhas, the Marys, the Josephs, they're just, amigos along the way. I'm galactic, man. I'm just passing through. Like Joe Cocker said, once was traveling through space, this lovely planet caught my eye. Being curious, I flew close by. Now I'm stuck here till I die. Learning to live together. Space Captain. Yeah, Leon Russell. God bless them. They're both on the other side now. So, Stephen Miller, oh, bless how does someone get so bitter at 34? They had pictures of him on the news I saw on cable. I think it was Joe Scarborough. Had some video of him in high school when he had hair, a full head of hair. And he was up on a podium complaining to the kids that the janitors are getting away with murder. They're third world idiots. When you throw your garbage on them, they get paid to pick it up. So don't pick up your man, he should have gotten the tar beat out of. Well, he grew up in Santa Monica. So, it's like you live, your life expectancy is all about your zip code. So if you've got a Nob Hill zip code, or I think pretty much anywhere in San Francisco, you got a good zip code, even as bad as it is here with the attack on the poor. When did the war on poverty become the war on the poor? Yeah, the residents in San Francisco, every neighborhood is under siege now. We have no friends in City Hall. The renters. It's all about landlords and corporations, and one by one well, there's a joy for me because I'm just coming through, and it's when I get home, I'll be wiser, and for having in my next incarnation, if I have to have one, I'll be, and I can look in the mirror and say, well, I happen to them, like anybody here at Bayvac, SF Commons. I happen to this place. And I think that a lot of people are glad. Oh yeah, I was listening to the radio the other day, and they were playing oldies. Love is like oxygen. You get too much of it, it will make you high. Not enough, and you're gonna die. Well, that could be said about money. Money is like oxygen. You get too much of it, it'll make you high. Not enough, you're gonna die. So there's like this 1%, and that leaves like 98% are fearful, are thankful for these crumbs. And we're blaming, now we got this racist blaming third world people for taking our jobs and resources, when what's happening is corporate to get our minds, like any geek does, with a bait and switch, 3-card Monty, distracting with something and make the switch. The corporations, they're getting away with murder. Football, God forbid any American should say anything bad about football, but you got these billionaires, literally billionaires, making money off of the, but it's not politically correct to say anything about these because we love our football, we love our sports. Well, I other interests. I only got 2 days here. Let me pick a card for you guys. Okay, here we go. Knowledge. Channel knowledge now. Just open your senses up. As long as you use your throat chakras, the one chakra that all the chakras take their lead from. So as long as you when you say, I am surrounded by the Christo Ray, I call it the Christ light, the Christo Ray. I'm surrounded by the love of the Holy Spirit, one mind. Doors appear where there were no doors. After, and when you're going through a dark night of the soul, don't give in to despair. That's when your soul needs you the most. That's why I found citrine beads work for me. They lift my spirit. Anything that's going to lift your spirit, if it makes you happy, it can't be that bad, as the song goes. So be good to ourselves now. We are, every one of us, man, woman, and child, going through a dark night of the soul. We're going through it to learn something. I don't believe in a sadomasochistic divine intelligence that says, I just love when they suffer. No, we're being told, change. Or we really, like the 21st century will be spiritual or it won't be. And when you say that, it's not a bad thing. Spiritual means joyful. Isn't that, people want to live forever. They don't even like the life they have now. They want an eternal one. It's kind of funny if it wasn't so tragic. Well, I see I'm judging. Anyway, I'll be back here. Have a happy harvest moon on the 13th. Listen to these astrology channels I've been mentioning. And then I'll be back on the 19th, Thursday the 19th, God willing. And I feel so connected to the young people because I know how much I influenced them. God bless you. Namaste. Okay. Come on, you can come in. I'm looking to shut this off here. Okay, here we go.